Entertainment, music, politics, society. Mason Musso joins us on Jobob Unlimited. It starts right now.
It's actually Jobob.
Jobob. Jobob. Jobob.
Jobob is a model citizen.
Live from the dingiest of dingy bunkers. My name is Jobob. This is Jobob Unlimited. And today we're joined by a very special guest who I'm super excited to finally actually connect to. Because, dude, this whole politics, entertainment world is so difficult because you're always running in the same circles with people. I think I've I don't know, been following each other for a year now and finally getting a chance to discuss. Mason Musso is here today to talk just stuff, hang out. If you're not familiar with his work, Social Order is the new music project. The older, is it okay if I say a little bit more prominent? Because you guys are
absolutely, it is
more prominent.
TikTok now, Shake It is just all over the place on TikTok, so it's definitely more prominent.
Yeah,
after all these years.
Metro station also. That's the old, but also still pumping stuff out. Possibly.
Yeah. And what's funny is little kids who obviously. When the first Metro record came out, I was I just turned 18, and now little kids who are 14 and 13 are doing TikTok dances to the Shake It and stuff. So it's really wild, man.
Dude, okay, so if you weren't familiar, what year was that? What year was that when that exploded?
Well, the record came out 2007, and then I would say 2009 and 10 were kind of our big fully on the radio, all that kind of stuff. Shake It was I think got to number 1 in Australia, 2 in the United States. It was really big all over the place. So
it's still played everywhere. Every wedding I go to also still just ubiquitous across modern American culture. Yeah. So you had a bunch of musical success early on in your formative years. Yeah. And then I don't like putting labels on people's political ideologies and stuff. I like saying freedom oriented. And so how did that happen? Just to get into the meat of it, right? You're in Hollywood areas, Southern California, LA area, burst onto the music scene. Yeah. Generally speaking, people kind of go one direction ideologically.
Right.
How does Mason Musso get this freedom-oriented, thought process? How does that happen?
It's so weird because, I don't know if I really feel this way now, but I kind of viewed myself as a classical liberal. I believed in, freedom of speech, freedom of expression, you could, and especially in the music industry, I always thought those things were super important, and people, obviously don't really feel that way anymore. So that's kind of sad. But how did I get kind of into more, I guess you could say, conservative politics? I grew up in Texas. I grew up in Dallas, Texas. So I learned how to play music in the church. I went to a giant mega church called Lake Point in Rockwall, Texas.
Yeah.
That's where I learned how to play. And I was a part of the youth group, playing at Pier 419 every Wednesday night for the youth group and stuff like that. And that's, I grew up around, I guess you could say it was more Republican, but at the same time, a lot of people where I'm from, they voted for Obama. They vote, there was definitely Democrats and Republicans, and but now you're right. Everyone kind of you have to, think one way, or otherwise you're in trouble, which is not good.
Dude. Yeah. So okay, so we run kind of in similar circles now, but in the past, I did a bunch of music stuff. Also, I was trying to see if I could find it. I have a picture with your brother at the High School Musical 2 premiere when we were 17. I don't know. So clearly you came out ahead on all of that sort of stuff. Yeah. But from my own personal kind of music endeavors, I did a bunch. I was in a boy band for a hot second. Cool. It was interesting. But all of the people that I ran around with didn't really look at politics really at all. And the brief kind of times that they would, it would obviously be hard to the left. Like,
Yeah.
so with that, like in your circles, obviously being a substantially bigger deal, how did you navigate that?
I wasn't really that political. I just, uh, there were definitely moments where, um, I don't know, it was never that hard before. People didn't really care that much. And now it just feels like, if you are even a little bit conservative or, you like Ron DeSantis, you're pure evil, so it's just like it's just wild. And I think that has to change. And I see actually a lot of you know, like people like Bill Maher and other like very prominent I'd say like liberals who are coming out and agreeing with what I'm saying and saying
Yeah.
kind of the same thing that like I think a lot of the especially the entertainment industry they've pushed too far and ostracized too many people and you have to listen to other voices that disagree with you. Crazy that's a crazy idea that you should listen to other people's opinions and ideas, but you should.
So you still play a lot of shows and you still tour
Yeah.
quite a bit. It seems.
Yeah.
Has your kind of and you're also in addition to that not shy about sharing stuff on social media and all that sort of stuff. Has that kind of stuff been impacted much? Is it just kind of like does anybody even care?
No, no one. I haven't lost any friends. I haven't I know there's a bunch of stories of like people who have like lost friends and stuff like that. And it's like I don't know. If I guess I've had a couple friends that are like ask me questions like, do you still believe in freedom of speech, man?
Yeah.
And just asking my friends questions like that. And I feel like I've turned a lot of people to kind of not be conservative, not be Republican or anything like that, but at least understand that freedom of speech is very important. I think especially with this whole Elon Musk buying Twitter and stuff like that. I think that's definitely made a lot of people who are super big Elon Musk fans be like, okay, maybe Elon's onto something here, and maybe the bias has gotten a little too extreme for everybody.
Yeah, dude.
Especially in the entertainment industry, like we're saying.
So like you haven't seen like people really don't care. So that's been my problem, not problem. And like I was worried that talking about politics now. Obviously, I've kind of dove in a little bit more, and that's what I do as a day-to-day job now.
Yeah,
But I was worried about like people shunning all of the entertainment stuff, and I kind of noticed the same thing a little bit. That
right.
people just don't generally care. So like with that, do you have any? And I'm not trying to have you out people here, but do you have people that you've talked to in your Hollywood, LA circle that are like very on the freedom side, but just not really super excited about talking about it?
They definitely don't like talking about it, but they are
Yeah.
100% for freedom of speech and stuff like that. And I think that was always, my big important thing was like, freedom of speech, freedom of expression. In like you were saying with the music industry, it's okay to go far left, run left, to run around with a Che Guevara shirt on, and that's totally fine. You know what I mean? That's totally fine. But the moment you are a little bit right, they try to ostracize, they try to destroy you, basically. So that all has to change. And I don't feel like I'm doing that much. I'm just saying my whole thing is just stop trying to destroy people because they're a little bit conservative or a little bit Republican or they like Ron DeSantis. Like, chill. Everyone needs to chill.
What would you categorize yourself? I'm not a big person. I'm not a big labels category type person, but like in a lot of ways, I think I personally am kind of like a libertarian type thing. Like, look, whatever you do with your life, like if you're an adult and you're not doing it to kids, like why would I care at all? But also don't waste money. Is like, how would you kind of like categorize yourself if you're going to?
I feel like I've always kind of been, kind of on that classical liberal streak. I was raised, religious. I'm a Christian, but I've always definitely not a saint by any means. Any stretch of the imagination. But classical liberal, I think sum me up. when I was younger, and now it just feels like, even that's viewed as conservative. So I guess I don't know. I guess I'm, now conservative. I don't know. I never thought that'd be the case, But people are calling Bill Maher now right wing and stuff. So that's what doesn't really. I don't know. Doesn't really make
like
any
the
sense.
people calling Bill Maher conservative should watch
Right.
literally anything from before 2 or 3 years ago.
Exactly.
Uh,
Exactly. Yeah.
Dude, do you remember the Flowbots by any chance? The I can
Yeah.
ride my bike with no handlebars.
Yes.
That song. So I have this theory, and I'm like curious to hear your thoughts about it. One of their songs popped up on Spotify for me, I don't know, a couple months ago, and I was like, I'm gonna listen to a bunch more. Like, I like the song. I like what it's saying. It's kind of like this whole like, the man, and stick it to the man type mentality. And then so I listened to a bunch more of their songs, and I was like, these guys, like, I agree with a lot of like their kind of take. Like, obviously they're not talking heavy policy in music, but I kind of think that their stick it to the man idea is something that I pretty much assimilate with.
Yeah.
I went to go then look at some of the social media stuff. I was like, I wonder what they're doing now. And a lot of it was not in the lane that I run in. And so here's my question, and here's my thought, and I'm curious to see if you've like thought about this or anything like that. I've always had that kind of like, stick it to the man guy attitude. And I grew up in the Obama years. Yeah. And so the man to stick it to was always Obama. And those guys are a little bit older than me and kind of grew up in the Bush years. And even though we have the same stick it to the man ideas, their man was George Bush.
Yeah.
Do you hear where I'm going with this?
Yep.
Like, do you think at all the time in which the people that kind of have this freedom-oriented mindset grow up pave the trajectory of which quote-unquote side they end up picking? Have you felt that at all?
I think that's right. I think that has a lot to do with it. The kind of the time period your like you're saying, your formative years kind of shape what you rebel against, right?
Yeah.
I guess to an extent, the authority that is around you, you always rebel against that. And then later in life, maybe you come home, because I guess that was, I definitely felt like I hated but the structures of Christianity and religion when I was younger. They felt very binding.
Yeah.
And as I've gotten older, I've really learned to appreciate those things more. And I think that's the classic. What is that? A very Jordan Peterson kind of way of like, you leave home at a young age and then you return home, kind of a thing. So I agree with you on that. I would also say, right now, especially with like you're saying, these, Flowbot, all these more artists who think they're fighting the man. Yeah. Well, if everyone around, if all the big tech media, Apple and all the news, if they all agree with you, you're not really fighting the man. You can't be the dominant culture and the counterculture at the same time. That's not how it works. And I feel like a lot of artists think they're fighting the man, and really it's like, no, everything you think is those people who think the way you think are in charge, and are dominating culture, and most of Hollywood is very liberal. I mean, that's true.
And what, like, I don't know, just from so we get to this like classical liberal sense, right? Sure. Like, I get that. And then you generally have parties aligned to, liberals or Democrats and conservatives or Republicans and all of that sort of stuff. Given that in especially in the last couple years, things have shifted, how do you break that constant idea in people who, I'm sure in that entertainment world, okay, liberal, Democrat, liberal, whereas now is like classical liberal freedom, that's heavily shifted to the Republican side. How do you
Yeah.
how do you break that constant reoccurring thought that people have to kind of go, okay, wait, maybe this doesn't always have to mean this,
Yeah.
and the tides are changing a little bit?
I think it takes really strong voices. And, I've definitely, not saying I'm one by any stretch of the imagination. I will say, funny enough though, one voice, and I guess it's not funny, but Rob Schneider, who is, he is like super vocal. And I really respect that because, first of all, he's hilarious and he's a legend. And I think it takes people like that. It takes more, prominent. Joe Rogan is another one who's pretty vocal. And again, not that these people are conservative or right, but they're stating facts that everyone kind of knows, but a lot of people, especially in the entertainment industry, kind of like, they self-censor themselves, because they're scared, which,
well,
scary.
And kind of to your point too, like I feel like Rob Schneider, Rogan, nobody that's posting anything or saying anything is anything that's like outlandish. Like nobody's claiming that like, oh, pigs fly, the world is flat, like all of these like, different things. Trying to refrain from going off on a flat Earth tirade. Birds aren't real. Yeah. The Earth is flat. Right. Yeah. But no, like nothing.
Yeah.
Nothing anybody says is like just so outlandish. You're like, yeah, this is just an obvious thing that for some reason, like society as a whole seem to forgot. And how do you fix that sort of thing?
Yes.
And yeah, dude. So tell me about the new music projects. Cause obviously, Metro Station being as big as it was and is, like Social Order, your new music project has, regardless of whether or not it's intentional, like social order, right? That says something. Like, what's the goal? Like, what are you trying to like convey through that stuff?
It was a passion project because right when COVID hit, me and a bunch of other guys from different bands, all of our tours got canceled. Everything, kind of fell under, and we were all, feeling, super depressed and down, just like I'm sure, obviously everyone else, it was, destroying everybody's lives. So one thing we did to kind of keep saying was we started a project together, a brand new project of all these artists who were in different bands. And so it kind of started that way as a passion project. And, we've only put out like one EP and a couple singles. So it's still a work in progress, and we'll put out some new music for it next year. So we're very excited about all that as well.
Dude, so one of the things that I like about your Instagram stories is all the peeks behind the curtains. Like there's no, like I have other artist friends who are like really try to make it like, oh, look at, I'm in the Capitol Records Studio B or whatever. Look at how cool my thing. And you're like open, like, yeah, like we can get the same quality in my buddy's house, and we, shoot a music video with like friends, as opposed, like there's not this big thing going on. So like in terms of like getting a peek behind the curtain, like what is that like with when you're sitting in a room with a bunch of, other artists that kind of got shunned during the whole COVID, not shunned, but canceled during the whole COVID thing.
Yeah.
Tours canceled. Like, what's that like? Because I feel like people have this perception in their mind of like what it's like in the room. Like, I don't know. What do you guys talk about? Like, do you guys talk about objectives and goals, or what's kind of the conversation look like?
Definitely objectives and goals. A lot of the guys in the Social Order project, they're not very political, but I think we all definitely are interested in aspects of politics, but it's not really, it was never really political, but it was more, we were finding ways to keep ourselves positive during a really difficult time. And so it's kind of morphed into, it's still that it's, best friends who are again in different groups. And, we've been able to make a new passion project out of it. And the kind of behind the scenes thing, I think, it feels like to me for a long time, it's been all about, flash and, people want to post about how like you're saying, the big studios or whatever.
Yeah.
But I don't really think that's super important right now. I think people like you're saying, the raw, down to earth kind of vibe. I think that's really important. And we're in a recession, so everyone's hurting. So I think people throwing around, money and flashy and whatever.
Yeah.
It's just to me, I don't know. It's not super cool. And maybe that goes in waves. I don't know.
Yeah. Are you able to separate like your way that you view the world with like entertainment? Like do you know what I mean? So my wife and I went to a Lizzo concert on I don't know, last weekend, and just I think she's this phenomenal entertainer. I couldn't disagree with more on political stuff. I've gone on the news and like talked poorly about her political takes,
Right.
but there's no denying that was a good, like, entertaining show. Do you have any trouble like separating that sort of stuff?
I have trouble. No, because I kind of keep politics out of my music. I've really never been super political as far as my music goes. That could change at any point. I don't know. It just kind of is how I'm feeling. But sadly, I don't think people really. Maybe someone like yourself can kind of separate that, and I think there's a good amount of people who can. But now it feels like everything's political, right? So you're kind of drawn into it either way. So that's just kind of the kind of age we're in, and hopefully that changes to where people can separate. His politics are this way, so I'm not going to listen to him, or his politics are this way, so I will listen to that. But unfortunately, I feel like we're kind of in that space. So
it's funny too, because I for some reason have like I separate things in my head in terms of like people. Like for some reason I was like, no, like I want to go see like Lizzo live, but I cannot stand like I'm not going to name names, but there are artists out there that put out objectively good music that I'm just like, I can't with this person. Right, I don't know why that is. I have this weird discrepancy in my own head that
it makes sense. It makes sense. And a lot of people, that's, I guess, if someone has abhorrent views, I'm totally, I'm absolutely with, I, have no interest,
Yeah, dude. So you mentioned you were putting out or looking to put out some stuff with Metro Station, and that's so for people who don't know, right? And correct me if I'm wrong too. Like that's you and Trey Cyrus.
We started the group when we were 16. We were putting stuff on MySpace.
MySpace
05, I guess. 05. Yeah.
And so is it still just you two? Like, do you guys produce it all yourself, or how?
We run. Yeah, me and him run everything. So
dang, that's and so you're looking at possibly doing some more stuff next year. You said.
I think that's the plan. I mean, we'll see what happens, but we're always communicating and seeing how the other one's feeling. We both have our own lives and everything going on, but we'll see.
Huh. Okay, so I don't know. I'm just kind of like shooting the breeze, man. Like I had like a list of like questions, but I'm like, I don't feel like I want this to be like a
I don't mind.
I don't know, standard. This is an interview because there's no rules on the internet anymore.
Yes.
But like, dude, what's your day-to-day look like? Because you're kind of in two different. You're in a category of, well, dare I use the word public figure, right? Because like. I there's musicians, and then there's like actors, and then there's news commentators, and it seems like you kind of have like, and I don't even know, like, would you consider yourself a producer too? Like,
not really. I'm more of a song. I consider myself a singer and songwriter.
Got it. So what's your day-to-day look like? Like, what does that look like in the modern post-COVID world now? Getting out to starting doing shows again, like all that stuff.
I'm super lucky. I'm able to wake up. I have a kid. I'm able to play with my kid and then go write songs for people or write a song for myself. Gosh, a lot of normal stuff. And then I'll go on tour and I just did a run a couple weeks ago.
Mm-hmm.
and it was the first time I was away from my kid for like, I think it was like 3 weeks. And so that's difficult. He started walking and I missed him being, taking his first steps and stuff like that. So that's kind of my life. As I said, I'm super lucky, super blessed. I'm able to make music and, be with my kid. And I'm very, very lucky. It's a great life. I love it.
Does the size of
I cook a lot. I love.
Oh, really?
Grilling steaks on the grill, all that kind. I'm a pretty normal guy, to be honest with you. So,
dude, that's what. Okay. So, all right. I hate to go down this like rabbit hole of stuff. Do you have a best friend?
A best friend? I have a lot of best friends.
Okay. Well, so let me rephrase that question.
I have one friend that, like, when the chips are down, I have a person, that'll pick up the phone, if that's what you're asking.
So what I'm asking, and so just kind of in this like artistry world, like I know a lot of like entertainers that kind of are in their own singular bubble. And what I've noticed is kind of like the consistent is like a lot of them don't have like a person that will pick up the phone when they call. And like, and some of them will even say like, call, like, what is that? Like, I don't even know like who calls anybody. And like, I'm like, so so what I'm getting at here is you seem grounded and normal, which I know is not a compliment, but it really is in that world. So like, I got
my problems too. I'm not saying I don't have any.
But everybody does.
So I am an artist, so I'm a Pisces as well. So it could. But I hear what you're saying, and I'll say this: I'm Italian, so my first phone call is always, my dad or my mom. So I got a ton of cousins, and I would say those are like, my best friends. So definitely my first phone call is probably family, and that's definitely what keeps me grounded.
Is your family still in Texas?
Yes, they're all in Texas.
How often do you go back?
I go back a lot. I go to Dallas a lot, and then my cousin Sarah, she married like this very, very wealthy oil guy who's also into wine, and so they have a vineyard in Fredericksburg called Senior Vineyards.
Nice.
So I'm actually there quite a bit. If anyone's looking for, basically the Napa of Texas, Senior Vineyards is like amazing. Gorgeous location. Yeah, it's awesome and amazing wine. So,
dude,
I'm there quite a bit.
What's your go-to wine steak pairing?
I'm huge. I'm big into French stuff, so I love a good Bordeaux and a ribeye, man. All about it. And then, to be honest, I also love a good bourbon and a cigar. And so those are some of my I'm still a Texas boy at heart, so
yeah, dude.
I have those vices, a little bit here and there, but those are some of the things I love in life.
I didn't know. I guess I didn't know you're from Texas, which makes so much more sense, which is kind of interesting. Like the geography in which somebody's born can kind of really, really have an impact on just the way they look at the world. That's 100%. Fascinating to me.
100%. I grew up, you're kind of getting your libertarian ideas, but growing up in Texas, you definitely, not in a bad way, but you kind of have a mistrust of government. To a little extent. Growing up in Texas, you're kind of right. I think that's kind of instilled in you, and not to get too crazy, but even growing up in Dallas and you're a little kid, you're like, your parents one day tell you, oh, they killed a president over there, JFK.
Oh yeah.
You're like, they shot a president, who shot? And then you go, you're kind of growing up in Dallas, especially, you're definitely warned, and not saying that that's what happened to JFK. I'm just saying that there are conspiracy theories, and all that. I don't get into any of that. I'm just saying that growing up in Texas, you have a very libertarian, you defend the defense of your freedoms is very important.
Yeah.
And you grow up with that mentality, being a Texan.
Well, and you also too, like, it's just a different, I feel like one of the biggest problems, like, especially federally speaking, is like people try to institute these laws that would cover people that live in New York City, which is the most condensed population in the country, and then also the same laws would apply to a rancher in Texas that has 100 acres. And like,
Makes
the
no sense.
lifestyle is just so different. Like, how do you even expect for those? They don't. There's so you don't even. I don't know.
I absolutely agree with you. And when I was younger, I didn't understand that as much. But like I said, you grow up and you appreciate your home more. I guess for me, that's how it was. When I was younger, all I wanted to do was get out of Texas. I wanted to get out of Dallas. I wanted to go to LA. I wanted, all that. But now, as I've gotten older, I appreciate it so much more.
Well, dude. Oh, and yeah, I'm just curious, how did you guys get to LA? Like, how did you get into this entertainment world from Texas? Because I didn't even think about that. That's not a normal trajectory.
Funny enough, there's a lot of in Texas. There was a lot of kids auditioning and stuff for. I guess when Mitchell was my younger brother Mitchell was when it started, and I think he kind of started in print work. So like JCPenney stuff, he was able to get stuff like that. Like
in Texas.
In Texas, yeah. And his first commercial was a Borden's milk commercial in Texas, and that's what kind of sparked people taking more of an interest in him and getting invited to come out to LA. We started coming out to LA for pilot season. I wasn't involved in acting at the time. I've only booked one thing ever, and it was the show Arrested Development. I had a one-liner on Arrested Development.
Oh, really?
That's my one acting experience.
Does it say by choice, or are you kind of like just kind of more following music?
I think when I was younger, our parents were definitely more. They wanted us to. They thought we were enjoying it too, and both my parents were theater people.
Nice.
They met doing theater in Texas and stuff. So acting and singing and dancing was definitely encouraged a lot. Definitely encouraged.
That's awesome. So that's how you got to LA.
Yeah, Mitchell was the one who booked the first commercial, and from there, he got booked on Disney, and he started booking, all that. So he was definitely the one that brought my family out to LA.
Dude, so in being a new dad,
yeah,
do you plan on like staying in California, or I guess what are your concerns, and how have they kind of changed in the last 3 years given your new life job?
It's definitely there are some great parts of, I think, California that are still sane.
Yeah, where I live.
Right. And I've even been looking into like the Orange County area. I'm in Santa Monica, and I love Santa Monica. I love it over here.
Yeah.
One of my favorite people ever. I don't know if any of your watchers know who Andrew Breitbart is.
Oh, of course.
But I would recommend reading this book, Righteous Indignation. He talks about how, he grew up around this area, Brentwood, Santa Monica area, and it influenced him a lot. So I love it over here, but I think if, Texas is always kind of calling me home to a certain extent. I miss it a lot. I miss my family a lot. I do go back a lot, but to actually live there would be different. So I think about it quite a bit, and I think as my son gets older, that'll be a tough decision I'm gonna have to make.
How much does being where you are right now, how much does that play a role in the music projects that you have? Like, basically, what I'm asking is being in LA like 80% important for for music, or is it kind of like now you can kind of do it from anywhere?
I think, especially since COVID, you can kind of do it from anywhere. I don't think it really matters, especially a lot of my friends who are in acting, they might have brought it back now, but for a long time, everything was to tape. No one was having people come in to audition in a studio or anything like that. And I think people are still a little wary about getting in studios with people and stuff like that. I don't think it's as important as it used to be. But a lot of the big decision makers, a lot of the lawyers, a lot of the business side of the music industry is definitely still here, and I would say maybe it's 50% important nowadays.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting. Orange County is not that far of a drive.
No, it's not, and I love it over there. And I've spent a lot of time over there, Manhattan Beach, and it's a little different than Santa Monica. I think, especially crime and stuff. Right now, it just hasn't really been that great. And in my personal opinion, Gavin Newsom is doing a terrible job. So no, I'm just not really, not really vibing on it. And I think Orange County, they kind of got a better head.
So you're like, you mentioned your new dad. Has your mind changed on things much? Because what I've learned or what I've noticed is a lot of people like kind of have a more free-spirited approach to just, everything's going to be fine eventually. And then they have kids and they're like, oh my gosh, I need to protect this thing with everything that I have. Yeah. But if you already kind of have this, like you said, a healthy distrust of the government and that sort of stuff, did really much change outside of obviously, loving your kid?
Yeah.
Like,
I think he's still super young. I mean, he's about to be 1 in December, but there's that quote from Peterson, Jordan Peterson, never interrupt your kid when he's skateboarding. And so sometimes, when my kid is, first now learning how to walk and stuff, I don't try to save him from every little misstep he's going to make. Sometimes he falls down and he learns from that. And I think that's really important for even super young to learn. You don't want to nerf the world for your kid and stop anything bad from happening. You know what I mean? Like, you don't want to do that. But definitely the Papa Bear instinct of wanting to protect your kid from everything is super high.
Sorry, transition.
No,
how did you get involved in Turning Point?
Gosh, one of their influencers at the time invited me to one of their events.
How did they know to invite you?
Well, I was friends with, I forget the influencer I was friends with. He knew who I was, and then he was like, come out to Turning Point, and I was like, okay. And I think it was the Young Women's Leadership Summit in Texas. In Dallas.
Gotcha.
I think that was the first event I ever attended in I want to say 2017, I think.
Whoa. Oh, you're like OG.
I'm pretty OG. Yeah. Yeah.
Interesting. And so
I've loved it. I've been going to their events for, years now. And I've always had just, the most amazing time. I will say also, I think I was their first performer, because now they have these giant country acts and stuff that are playing. Their fest and everything. But I think I was the first act that played. I played "Shake It" the first time they had acoustic thing kind of going on. So,
oh, dude,
that was super fun. That was super
okay. Cool. So, but how did the friend who invited you to the event know to invite you? Because I can invite, anybody in the entertainment industry, and they're
talking about politics with them, and I was like, I knew who Turning Point was.
Got it.
I had followed, Charlie Kirk, and who else was I following at the time? I think I was following, Ben Shapiro, Charlie Kirk, all those kind of people. I was following all those people. And so, I've always been interested in, again, going back to the very, liberal control of Hollywood. I've definitely always been interested in what the other side's saying and how the other side's feeling, and how half the country thinks is important. So that's why I was invited, because I was, very interested in Turning Point, and just an incredible organization, good people, and I've always had a great time there.
It's kind of interesting on Instagram, especially not outing people, because that seems like a bad term, but you click on their followers and then you see Turning Point, Charlie, Ben, all these people, and you're like, oh, well, this is an interesting wrinkle. I didn't know this about this particular person.
Right.
Have you had that happen?
No one has ever been like, Mason, I see that you're because I don't know if people don't want to have the conversation with me, or they're they don't want to. Again, I think a lot of them self-censor and they don't want to have the conversation because they can't really back up, this idea of like getting rid of freedom of speech and, censoring people online. And it's so anti the music industry in general. And we have, especially in the industry, punk rock. It's like, you are not being punk if you're trying to censor everything. Like, you are so not punk if everything you're doing is censoring freedom of speech and trying to get people kicked off stuff. That is the antithesis to punk. Sorry. It's like, so I think with them, I think a lot of them know, and they just, don't want to talk about it. So,
dude, so in like your understanding of because obviously you've been in some pretty big rooms with some big music I'm assuming, I don't actually know, pretty big rooms, a pretty big music execs type of thing. Does anybody actually really care at that level of the like super woke stuff? And I guess the best example I have of this is Ari Emanuel, who's a big time power broker agent
right.
out in Hollywood. His brother is Rahm Emanuel, who was the chief of staff for Obama, Chicago mayor, big time politically speaking, very like lefty group.
Yeah.
Ari bought the UFC. His group bought the UFC, which is run by Dana White, who is very the other side of the aisle a lot. And Ari was saying like, I only want to work with Dana. And Dana was like, I only want to work with Ari. So like, clearly there's a big ability to like push all of that crap aside.
Absolutely.
And then it makes me wonder, like, do they buy it in the first place? Like, what's your kind of gauge? Is it?
I don't know. I think it's what's the famous Michael Jordan quote where,
you
know what I'm saying? He was like, what did he say? He was like,
Republicans buy sneakers too.
They buy sneakers too. It's like, dude, like, you want to limit your, like, you can sell to those people too. People who are a little more right and a little more left, can both enjoy UFC. They can enjoy albums. They can, and this, again, I feel like a broken record, but I'm sure, you feel the same way. It's like, can't isolate half the country and expect, your business to do well or anything to do well. It's just not a good business model for sure. I feel
like too, like kind of the culmination of that is like, okay, so these big incendiary comments of people saying like Ari Emanuel's brother has said some stuff that you're just like, there's no way that you actually believe that. Like, that's so out there and so like nuts that you don't believe. There's no way that you could say that and actually believe it, and then also still do business with, somebody who you just called the most evil thing on the face of the earth.
Yeah, I think a lot of it's, trying to, save face. They're trying to, I think they're more worried about getting attacked by, Joy Behar, or like super woke lefty, they're worried about getting attacked on The View. So I think a lot of people, they not only self-censor, but maybe say all the right kind of things that this woke stuff has come down the pipeline of, this is how you're supposed to think, this is what you're supposed to say. So probably that's the case.
Do you feel like you have like a gauge on being able to kind of like swing people to the more freedom-oriented side of things? Like I don't know, maybe this is like pompous of me, but I feel like give me 30 minutes with somebody and they may not vote the same way that I vote at the end of that, but they'll be like, oh, I get it. Right?
Yes. And I think, hammering stuff in like freedom of speech, I mean, let's agree that that's important. Okay, you agree? Great. Who is against that? That should be our enemy. That is not, even, who did I see? The UN tweeted out words are weapons. And I was like, what the, what are you talking about? Like, words are weapons. Words are actually in no way weapons. They're not, words are not weapons, you know? And so I think if you can get people to kind of see that a lot of that kind of stuff is just, you know, BS.
How do you get them to see that? How do you do that? This is the question, obviously. Like, how do you do that?
Because if that's the case, then, you know, all of our, you know, some of our favorite movies, our favorite music, our favorite comedians, these things are going to have to go away. If you're saying words are weapons or freedom of speech isn't important, then we're going to have a horrible, the entertainment industry's gone, you know, like, like so, you know, I think stuff like that. I think that's why comedians are so great, because comedians are able to, you know, they kind of show culture. Oh, I see. This is where the line is. You know, we're not supposed to. Oh, right. Everyone sees that this is the line where we're not supposed to cross, and comedians cross it. And then they're like, "Oh, see, I just crossed that line, that imaginary line that, you know, you're not supposed to talk about." And I think comedians and musicians, if they don't, and actors and stuff like that, they have to see it's important, and they should be more vocal about it, because that's your industry, man. You know, freedom's, you know, words are weapons. That is frightening. That is Orwellian. That is super Orwellian, man. So that's how I feel about it. You know,
the whole, like, I've experienced violence by somebody saying mean words to me, dude. You know what I think is interesting from a comedy perspective, because are you stand-up comedy fan?
Love stand-up.
Who's your go-tos?
Love Ricky Gervais. His new special was hilarious.
Yep.
And then I love old school, like Robin Williams. Some of his stuff is like super dirty, but man, he was hilarious, man. Robin Williams was so good. Such a legend. Who else do I really love? A lot of Bill Maher stuff is really, you know, again, he's kind of more on the political side of, you know, comedy, but a lot of his stuff was always so funny. And, you know, I'm able to hear jokes about people that I really like, you know, especially, you know, he's making jokes about Republicans all the time. I can laugh at that. And then, you know, it's still okay. But, like, you know, the other way around, I think a lot of people, this idea of, you know, getting offended at everything, it's like, bye-bye comedy, you know, like, it's not gonna work if everyone's just, you know, canceled because they're offended, you know.
Dude, so I do stand up, and I was trying to, like,
come to your shows. That's awesome.
Well, if I can book them is the problem, dude. I would hit up comedy clubs in areas, and, like, the 30,000 feet. I'm not mean. I don't try to be mean. Like, in this world of, like, political commentary, like, before I got into this, I sat down with my wife, and, like, we're like, we set some ground rules. Like, one, like, I will never call somebody a libtard or, like, demean people individually I'll attack ideas all day long, but I'm just, bottom line is, I'm not mean. And that's fine. If people want to, you know, talk that way, that's fine. But, like, that's kind of my whole thing. So I'd be messaging, like, comedy places, like, hey, like, I want to book a night here. And I think I hit up like 30, 35 of them. 0 got back to me. And a bunch of them blocked me. Like, I'd messaged them on Instagram. They just blocked me on Instagram. Like, what? Like,
it's ridiculous.
There are some comics, like, I can see that. But, like, me? Like, I'm not, like, I don't know. I'm making a point to not be a dick.
That's insane. And the industry can't continue like that. We can't, you're not going to just canceling you know, not booking someone because, you know, they lean a little bit right, or they're kind of conservative, or they're libertarian, you know, that the industry can't go on like that. And I think we're seeing how it devastates comedy with stuff like SNL. I mean, when was the last time SNL was funny? I don't know. I guess when Chris Farley was around, but, like, comedy is being hurt by this kind of stuff, like you're saying.
I think too, there's an opening for it, because I, like, did at certain point I just got frustrated, and I was like, all right, I went to the local bar down the street and was like, hey, can I rent out your bar for a night? And ended up working. And it just, that's how I guess I have to do things now. But honestly, you know, there's a little bit more risk on my end, but it actually financially worked out way better than if I were to get paid by some comedy club.
Smart. I think unfortunately we're, I don't know how long, I don't know how long, this industry can take just like censoring, anybody who thinks differently. But what you're doing is probably the best way to go about it right now.
Dude, so I've been, I've said, and I'd be curious what you think about this. I've said like in the 60s, 50s, 60s, like I probably would be a Democrat in the sense of like looking at like COINTELPRO and the stuff that the FBI was doing, tapping Martin Luther King's phones, like stuff like that. And like, obviously the pendulum has swung entirely the other way where you have, well, the same agency, the FBI, tapping people's phones. And like, I feel like my thoughts on that sort of stuff, like, hey, maybe the FBI shouldn't be doing that. Doesn't matter what party it is. And, in the past, like, Republicans had they were kind of the arbiters of that whole tapping the phone system. Is that kind of like how you look at things? Like, I have these beliefs and wherever the party, I don't care. It's just don't infringe on my freedoms.
What's right is still right. Even if it was right back then, it's right now. It's still right. And unfortunately, we're kind of in like this, postmodern, power game where it's like, for a long time, like you're saying, the I guess more Democrat kind of thing was out of power and the Republicans had power. And now that it's flipped, they're going to, and the things like the FBI are just, obviously it seems like they're corrupt, I'm sorry to say that, but seems that way, please don't come after me, FBI. But I'm just saying, it definitely seems like a lot of these institutions, they got some problems. They got some, they need maybe to be cleaned up a little bit. And there's obviously a bias within these agencies. It seems that way to me. So I think you're right. I think, unfortunately, instead of the people who are not in power and now are in power, instead are going to use that power to get revenge. Maybe, I guess, is that what kind of you're saying to a certain extent?
Yeah, I don't know, man. Like, well, like I've always said, like the second that, and again, I hate using party terms because I just don't like. I don't really like jive with all that stuff. But like the second that Republicans go to trying to like force people to get a shot or do whatever, right? Like that's when I'm out. Like it's the policy stuff. Like I'm a policy person, not a party person, not a personality person. Like whoever is going to, I don't know, say the things that I like, I don't care what they're registered. If the Green Party candidate, which is probably the party that's farthest away from what I currently think, if their candidate was like, hey, the government should be out of your business, taxes are stupid, and we don't want to spy on you, I'm like, I guess I'm voting for the Green Party now. Yeah. Like, I feel like that's kind of lost, especially in kind of, I don't know, your modern world. Everybody's like party. I'm like, dude.
Yeah, it is definitely that way. And it seems that way. And I agree, Turning Point always says big government sucks. I 100% agree with that. Yeah. And, it always turns out to be a monster. The more you feed it, it becomes a monster. And, it's very unfortunate. It's very unfortunate. And I think, the smaller government is better, it's better because our rights, like you're saying, our rights get trampled on and people, I think people are fine if the government's big. If it's, my party and my party's in power and make the government as big as possible. It's like, beware because, it always comes back around,
Yeah, dude. Individual always knows what's best for the individual. Yes. That's what I would say. Dude, I really, really appreciate this. What's coming up from you next? What to tell people where we've got I haven't been reading comments here because I've just been, I don't know, fun chatting away, but some of these comments are kind of funny. A lot of when you said, yeah, I grew up with a healthy distrust of the government in Texas, that went to a bunch of people were like, yeah, question the government at all times. Whatever happened to government questioning authority, all that sort of stuff. So they, I don't know.
That was always very punk rock too. And I don't know what has happened, but it just, punk, not that I guess Metro Station was never really punk, but more kind of like electronic rock. But yeah, you should always question authorities of power, and that's super important. That's good. It's a good thing.
I thought that was funny in the comments. Like that was like the thing that I've got like scrolling through a bunch
of
these.
Got great fans. You got great fans. There you go. They know
what's next for you? Where can people find you? All of the self-promotional stuff.
Definitely, follow me on Instagram, the Mason Musso. Same with Twitter, the Mason Musso. I'll be doing a bunch of shows next year. What else do I have going on? I've honestly just been in the studio writing a bunch. Every now and again, I will kind of do stuff like this. I'd love to do one with you sometime where I do like under an hour chat with different people I find very interesting.
Yeah, dude.
I just did one with James Lindsay. I don't know if you know who James Lindsay is.
Love James.
Yeah, so I did one with him.
Yeah,
and I love similar to kind of what you're doing. Just talking with very interesting people, and so that's kind of what I've been up to. A lot of music, mostly. So
nice, dude. Are you going to America Fest?
I'm not going to make it this year, unfortunately.
Yeah,
I'm not. I'm super bummed out about that, man.
Yeah, it's a wild time. Next year, it'll be bigger next year. It's always bigger next year.
Yes, I plan on doing some more events with, hopefully with Turning Point next year. We'll see.
Nice, dude. Well, cool, man. Hey, really appreciate the chat. And then, anytime you're in this neck of the woods, we've got another seat here in the podcast studio.
100%. And come down to Santa Monica sometime.
Oh, dude, I'm hoping to get to one of the emo nights because I like my wife and I have gone to a couple of them. We saw the dude, the yellow card guy. I forget what his name is. Lead singer.
Ryan.
Ryan. Yeah, it was Ryan. Yeah, he was the one that you were at pretty close to us. You're like, I think I was out of town.
Oh, well, was it Observatory?
What, the one that Ryan was at?
Yeah,
I think so.
Was close to me. Or no, which one was close to you?
No, we went to the one in Observatory. The one you did, it was in like Montclair, and I was out of town or something. Something was
bummer. Next one.
Well, one of these. I'm gonna stay posted. We got like fake lip rings and like everything. We do the whole thing.
Perfect.
So, yeah, dude, thanks so much. Really appreciate the chat.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right, brother. Stay well.
All right.